everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Ben Jackson. You've probably forgotten who I am because it's been so long since I actually was able to do one of these, but it is good to be back. It's good to reconnect with Scott and Joris, who are still here and have been carrying on wonderfully while I've been faffing around with houses and AFCONs and all that sort of stuff. Guys, how you doing? How's it been? Is it too late to say Happy New Year? I don't know when the cut-off point is for that sort of thing.
Oh, now that's an interesting question, isn't it? How long is too long? How long has it been actually? Do you know, I was checking that the other day, funnily enough, because somebody I know who does listen to this podcast, there are apparently people who do that, who said, do you know, it's been 3 months since Ben was last on an episode. I think it was the 5th of November we go back to. That's when it was. So, no, a very warm welcome back to the BFP's founder and host, and what a delight it is to be a Trident again.
Yeah, it must have been around the last time Genk won a game as well. So that's probably that might be slightly less than 3 months. If I recall right, there might have been one more episode in between, somewhere end of November, beginning of December, so to get Ben a little bit of slack in between. But yeah, it's good to be with the three of us again, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. It is wonderful to be back, and the Belgian Pro League's back in action as well. It's like we kind of timed this perfectly well for me to come back and all the action to kind of kick off, and it was a pretty dramatic weekend, I guess we can say, in some places. So we'll do our usual. I'll quickly go through the results. I've given the guys a task of just picking one moment, transfer, goal, whatever, from this weekend's action that we can dive into. Club Brugge have just finished playing in the Champions League, so we'll quickly talk about that and the ramifications for them going forward. Like I said, I've been at AFCON, so I thought I'd hijack the podcast for a brief bit to kind of talk about that and my experiences and the kind of controversy that came out of that, and a slight Belgian angle on a couple of players that I saw. And then obviously we'll do the Challenger Pro League, which also returned, and there's been a technically not a big money move, but actually a big money move that we probably need to talk about because it's slightly bizarre. But yeah, we will get to that eventually. I'll just quickly go through the results. So Friday night, Club Brugge were 2-0 up against Real at half-time, go down to 10 men within the first half, then lose that game 3-2 in dramatic fashion. Sort of again, they beat Genk 2-1 at home. Cercle Brugge, they won on the road, big win for them. They beat Westerlo 2-0. Union beat Mechelen at home by 1-0. Ghent left it quite late to turn things around against Anderlecht. They won that one by 4-2. The reason Cercle Brugge's result was so big was because Dender got a win as well. They beat Antwerp thanks to a Roman Kvet goal. Charleroi won the derby by 2-0. And Sint-Truiden kept things going with a 1-0 win over Leuven, who are struggling at the moment. Scott, I will start with you. What was your kind of main moment from that, of any of the action, or if it's a transfer, anything like that kind of caught your eye this week?
Well, there's a couple of things, really. I think the first one was a slightly bizarre response in the press from a club chairman. We don't really like seeing club chairmen coming out and talking to the press, particularly in the aftermath of games. They are rarely insightful and add anything of note. So Ghent's Sam Barrow comes out after managing to beat Anderlecht after a few days before being beaten by Anderlecht and putting out of the cup. Sam Barrow comes out and makes a statement, well, with what we've been through, this is a turning point, which was the gist of what he said, which I just thought was really bizarre. And if I'd been Rick DeMille, I'd have been a bit irritated by that. I think Rick handled it quite well. You know, he comes out, he says something silly, he basically undermined Rick. Making what was quite a big statement about it being a potential turning point for them on the basis of one win. Okay, not had a great record against Anderlecht really recently, so in that sense, yes, it's notable and it's a relief. But to essentially say this is a turning point, I thought was a bit of a silly thing to say. Interestingly, Rick then appears. Post-match press conference, and of course inevitably gets asked because of this statement, so is this a turning point? To which he says, rightly, it could be a turning point, but only if we continue our work and do the things that I want the team to do. Obviously one of those is try and dominate games, be better with the ball. yeah, I'm not a fan of presidents saying silly things and dropping people in it and inviting pressure. They should really know better. Preferably not say anything at all, because they don't need to really. So that was certainly something I noticed this week that was kind of notable. And the other thing actually was a transfer that's been confirmed today. Omar Diouf, 22-year-old Senegalese striker, who was at RFC Liège, of course, and having a pretty good season, is now a Canary. He's gone to St Truden for, I think it's around about $1 million, with some bonuses in there, which could very well be a bit of a steal. There was quite a lot of interest in him. Nobody wanted to pay that other than St Truden, and I think he's made the right choice because he's going to play there regularly, I think, and continue that development because he's been doing really well since he came to Belgium. So he's been on this kind of meteoric rise. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he does. Really fast, agile player, good in the air as well, box dominant striker. A nice thing to find. His hold up play is good. He likes to run the channels. He's a bit of a nightmare for defenders in lots of ways. His position is good. His instincts are good. He's got a lot of the things that, are going to excite fans and kind of be good to watch. And certainly from what I've seen of him in an RFC Liège shirt, he looks like a player who, you would like to see at a high level. Let's see if he can replicate that in any form. Much like one of his predecessors, of course, Adriano Bertoncini, who's at Anderlecht now, who, of course, came from Liège to St Truden before going to Anderlecht. So really interesting one. And they're two big takeaways for me this week.
Yeah, I mean, the Diouf Bertoncini comparison is going to be made so much, isn't it, because of the similarities in terms of the clubs that they left and stuff like that. But it'd be interesting to see if they do what they did with Bertoncini, which was like, obviously they signed him, and I can't remember who was in. It was Fink, wasn't it, at the time, who was in charge? He was like, well, the system we play is like complicated, and he's not used to the system, so I'm not actually going to play him yet. And it wasn't until the next season that we saw that. I feel like Vranken would be slightly different. I feel like he's not going to be as like, oh, he can't play in my system. I don't feel like he's kind of that rigid, I guess, in that sense. So I feel like we should see him a little bit more than Bertoncini. He probably would be given a little bit more of like an opportunity to play, depending on injuries, because obviously they've got strikers there that are doing well anyway. So there's no like massive pressure on him to come in and deliver straight away, which is quite nice. And obviously, when Kasuki goes back to Anderlecht next year, they've got him due to kind of come in. So it's kind of like that's quite a nice, potentially doing kind of what the good teams in Belgium do, which is sign for the replacement earlier than when it's like last minute resort sort of thing. Joris, I don't know if you wanted to come in on that as well before we talk a little bit about Ghent off the back of what Scott said.
Yeah, not really much to add there. It's an interesting transfer, but at the moment, indeed, we have to see how relevant it will be for this season already. But regardless, indeed, like for the next season, most likely this would be a really good transfer, a good pickup for Sint-Truiden. And they're of course in a good position as well. So like adding some more versatility in their squad and in their striking position, we know. Despite everything, they're still underperforming. Despite how well they are performing, they're still underperforming on the attacking offensive field. Even despite Goto actually doing quite well and other players pitching in as well. But their underlying numbers actually are even better than their position indicate, I guess. So maybe he can already help this season, and maybe he is the missing link for a title challenge.
An interesting one, that, isn't it? Because St Truden are, and we've, me and Joris have been talking about them a fair bit over the last few weeks, as their form's been good and all things have been good, really kind of coming out of St Truden. But they are the informed side in Belgium at the moment, and still nobody's really talking about it. They're talking kind of around it a little bit. 8 wins in their last 9. Wouter Rankin just today saying that, look, there isn't any secret. It's just kind of hard work and basic fundamental things like clearing out some bad personalities, some disruptive influences, and just getting people feeling good about themselves. Football's a very simple game. I know lots of people say that. We say that. Other people say that, and it's kind of true. That's obviously the answer to that one. But it's rather remarkable what's going on there. Nobody would have thought that the season they're having at the moment is the one that they were going to have. And the other thing as well is actually looking at some things today. They've got a really good fixture schedule. I mean, I know games aren't played on paper, but looking at that, you're thinking, see if they can continue this. Could be interesting. Could be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and it's the way I want to kind of look at them. If potentially you treat last year as a slight blip as well, because the managerial decisions that they made at the beginning were quite weird, but they kind of have been building from Hollaback, start to put the kind of things in place to build up a little bit more towards kind of let's push for some playoff. The system obviously that was there at the time was slightly different, but they were pushing for playoffs, never quite got there. Fink comes in and they play really attractive football again, and don't quite get there. But now Franken's coming, it's kind of like he's elevated them even more towards kind of, this is a lot higher than I thought they'd probably go. I thought maybe pushing for a top six would be quite a incredible achievement. Even if they make top six and let's say they don't, they peter out, it's still an incredible achievement for them to have done that, kind of considering what they lost and what they've kind of had to work with and stuff like that. So yeah, he's doing a great job, and I'm going to slightly hijack it and transition to kind of the person I wanted to talk about, because it kind of links, because we talked about obviously a player from the second division coming in and potentially scoring some goals. The next game that St. Truden have is against Real, and I want to talk about a Real forward in Pat Musafal, who he definitely caught my eye last year, because he'd score for Serang, but he seemed to score in bunches. I feel like I remember he'd score braces and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this guy's kind of interesting. Joins Real, and I think he doesn't score in his first handful of games, but since the 2nd of December, he scored 7 goals in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. Only one of those games he didn't score in, which was a 0-0 draw against Leuven. Scores a winning goal against Club Brugge. And I was looking at Real before and was just they obviously, I'm not being any kind of mad insight here to say that they need someone that can score goals. It was quite obvious. And I presumed kind of before January that they were going to have to go into the market to get someone. They were going to just have to go and do it. But it seems that they've got the person that they need. And if he can just score double figures, then I think that's perfectly fine for what they need, because defensively they're really good still. They've got one of the best goalkeepers in the league at the moment in terms of he's performing at a really high level. Obviously they conceded 2 goals to Club Brugge, but then to come back and win that game, I think there's turning points in seasons, aren't there, where it's they were slightly dipping a little bit, and then this result could be okay, no, we can belong here, we can kind of stay above, sort of thing. They can kind of do what Dender did last year and just manage to finish above the bottom 4, and that's absolutely fine. And yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to him because I think he's in fantastic form.
Don't forget, still the laughing stock of my friends and me when I watched the game against Westerlo between them. But he also scored in that game, but that was literally the only thing he did well in that game. So to me, it's still a mystery. So I'm sure I'm sure a goal, his efficiency is really good, and that's very important for a striker, obviously. And I mean, some of his goals, okay, the last few, to be honest, I'm not sure if there was a big quality. I mean, in them, you need to put the ball over the line, of course, but they were not the most difficult ones. But he has actually scored quite a few good ones as well. But I don't know. He's still really. It's a rough, a diamond in the rough. I think I also described it like that after the game as well, maybe in that episode. But I don't know. But there's a lot of potential there, indeed. And if he can continue that, indeed, that is a question. Another question is already, of course, he's actually on loan from Metz. So, if other clubs would be interested, or if La Louvière want to take him over on a permanent deal, what will be the price, and how eager are Metz to really not keep him after this run as well. So but yeah, definitely he is showing his prowess for goal. Also, he started on the bench, I believe, in the last game against Club Brugge, but nonetheless, again, late winner, late scoring. That was exactly what happened against Westerlo, where they had still given away that point that they would have gotten otherwise. But yeah, like I said, a bit of a mystery to me still. But we've seen that, and of course, if he can develop technically, I think mainly the thing was like he was really struggling with the ball at his feet, like in that game against Westerlo. And I should really not bring everything back to that game. I know, but since it's really not that long ago, still, I'm doing that. But if he can improve on that, then we know this kind of striker works really well in Belgium for sure. So yeah, that I can start seeing now based on that Westerlo game. I couldn't, but start seeing why bigger clubs actually had interest already before he had the injury last season. Already, and now I start seeing it. Before I was not so convinced, but yeah. If he needs to continue this, of course, but he's on a good, definitely on a good run of form, and bringing the goals that La Louvière desperately needs for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, yeah, you're right. Like last year, 2 seasons ago, sorry, for Solang, 10 and 25. Last season, 8 and 16 before the injury and stuff like that. And yeah, if you look at, FootMob do those like player trait things. And when you were speaking, it pretty much summed what you said up, because it's like he's in the top 99% of strikers for goals, top 96% of strikers in terms of like aerial duels won. So he's like really high in goals, really high in aerial duels. Touches 12%. So like it's really bad compared to other strikers. Chances created 15%. Like you can see the kind of where he needs to go in terms of development and stuff like that. But he's only 21, plenty of time left for him to do that. And sometimes you just need a big physical lad up front. Like we've all seen teams that they're crying out for it. So fair play. He is definitely doing the job. Yours obviously over to you now, unless Scott has anything to jump in on before we go to your moment or thing of the week.
I actually want to jump back before I do that to Scott's first point of Gent and Bago as well. We don't like it when they do when managers or like higher ups give this kind of stupid premature comments maybe. But on the other hand, what's the fun? What would be the fun without it? So but I agree. It could be the case, but also like this turning point and so on. These are typically things you can only judge in hindsight anyway. So like in a few months, we probably can look back at it, and that's of course the case with almost everything. But yeah, you learn these things, you would think, at least, and then indeed not to put extra pressure when you're a bit longer in the footballing world. But who knows? Maybe he's right. It could be. But yeah, now it's a victory against an Anderlecht side. A deserved victory, of course, and indeed they have had a bad record against them for a while. But an Anderlecht side which are still struggling with injuries and had actually, I think, all of their changes, or 4 changes at least, were like forced as well, so that they had to take people personnel off because of some injury worries or precautions. So a bit of a deflated Anderlecht side, and they still won, of course. But even when Anderlecht were not great, they actually were quite close in minutes at least. Anderlecht were quite poor actually, not that great, but they could have actually ran away with it as well, if not for a few things at the end of the game, of course. So in that sense, quite close. But that's on Gent, of course. But they are in the top 6 now. Can they keep it or not? That's the question, of course. But yeah, I still don't really know what to make of this Gent side either. Anyway, like they don't seem like. I mean, there's a few players in there. It's not really a good team, all in all, I would still say. But like maybe it's enough to push a little higher than the last 2 seasons. I'm not completely convinced. So yeah, that's why I'm much like Scott, and I'm supposing Ben as well, a bit hesitant on claims of this is a turning point, and then are they going to be able to be maintaining this kind of goal scoring form as well? I'm not super convinced by their strikers anyway, as well. they brought it back home. I think we didn't touch on that transfer, even though it was materialized last week, I think already. But that could be good for them. Well, he's quite a nice technical player, as we know, and could maybe replace Gandelman in terms of goals as well, because we know he can do that as well. But same with him, to just maybe to the whole side though, like he's a bit inconsistent. Like he can have really good games, but then followed by one or two or more, lesser games which are then a bit below par. But yeah, we will have to see how that will develop. I don't know if you still want to come back to that, or if I should immediately go to my points now. I'll do that. Actually, initially I also wanted to take something about Sint-Truiden, but since I knew Scott already took something about that, and we already talked a bit about that, I won't. Just maybe quick mention to Sebaoui getting a goal, well, that's the point of his game that he needs to work on, but it was a really nice strike, so that is good for his confidence, that's just a quick shout out to him. But apart from that, I'm going to come back from my moment of the week to Ben's favorite player. It's also loosely related, not to this AFCON, but to AFCON maybe. But in Marco Ilai Mahahitra and his comments after the games, the derby against Charleroi, where he of course used to play. And now he's in a different camp in the Walloon Derby Standard. After they lost 2-0 and the fans had announced that he would really get a warm welcome and that it would be hell. After they comfortably lost that game, he said it was not so bad. I thought it would be more warm, or it would be worse. It would be more like hell. But then actually, I knew that it wouldn't be, because I know the fans can't really make it better than this sort of own experience. So that came out of the blue. You see a bit of shithousing of the field there from him. But yeah, I mean, he's not getting anything better with that, because of course he doesn't get any points. And the Charleroi were the better side in that game as well. But okay, that was mainly my segue to Charleroi, because I actually wanted to talk about them, because they are probably the second best informed team now as well. Especially taking also into account, touched on that last week already, the cup win against Club Brugge and now also deserved to win against Standard in the Walloon Derby. So they really had a really good start of the second half of the season of 2026 as well. And in the games before that, they also won against Anderlecht in Genk, for example. So they had an upturn in form to the back end of last year, and are still seeing that. Of course, in connection potentially with Rick de Mil as well. Like now he's gone, and like it seems like Hans Cornelis is doing at least as good, and actually currently an even better job at Charleroi than the Mill did. And yeah, that also taking into account that both Camara and mainly Titraoui also were on AFCON. So I'm making a lot of loose connections here to every possible in every possible way, but so they will be coming back soon now, of course, as well. They missing them, and still they performed really well, and they did deserve all the wins that they got as well. Like maybe to come back to another comment from a Charleroi player, a nicer one maybe, but still I think it's still a bit in the vein of the derby as well. Antoine Bernier, who scored the second goal, of course, and I mean I haven't actually seen, I've only read the interview, so I might miss the nuance and the context here, but of course we know he comes from the Anderlecht youth as well, playing for Charleroi against Standard. So yeah, really Standard is the side he doesn't like to play against, or he does. because he got his second he got the man of the match award for this game, and he said like, oh yeah, well, I've had another one against Standard, so that's really sweet. So that's more in the positive sense, maybe. But yeah, also worth mentioning, I think. But yeah, Charleroi really are on a roll so far, and Hans Cornelis really has started off really well. Which could, I'm not sure if I should bring it up, but we could somehow talk about make the connection again with all the changes in the managerial changes that did not really resort any effects yet. In Charleroi, were of course then the last one, like the where the carousel stops, I guess, with the mill going to Ghent after Club Brugge got Leko, and Hayen of course was sacked before that, and at Genk there's definitely no shock effect yet. Club Brugge, that might be a segue for later, but they have won this today as of recording in the Champions League. But they had a horrible week before that, of course. But okay, I'll leave that for later. But yeah, not the best of starts for sure for them. And in Ghent, it's also a bit they are out of the cup now. They got a few wins, but it took a while before the Mill got a few wins in the league as well. So like it didn't really resort immediate effect. Maybe they are now on the right track. I know one person in that board that thinks so. They're definitely on the right track now. But let's see if that's will materialize. Will continue. But yeah, so far Charleroi, with an internal solution, an internal promotion, are actually the side that has done the best out of those. Again, of course, too close, too easy to conclude anything on basis of this. But the only thing we can say is, I guess, the shock effect is not happening at all of those clubs that actually made those changes. I guess maybe in some clubs to a bigger extent, something still happened. At others, nothing really seems to have changed.
Yeah, although I do wonder if when DeMille came in, he was told to not bother trying to get into the top six because Ghent don't do well in the top six. So he was told, just get into playoff 2 and we'll be fine. So you need to have some semblance of things going well, but actually, like, you can lose a couple of games. It will just drop into the playoff 2, and that's where we like to make our money anyway. But I completely agree with you, Joris. And I think, a couple like Perfect Guegon's like obviously been good for them for the last couple of seasons. He's playing quite well. Patrick Fluke's been a great signing. Like 2 more assists for him. Like, what's that? 6 assists, 3 goals. He's having a good one. Schiedler's doing okay. Like he's scoring a couple of goals. Like he's not what Stulic was, but Stulic is struggling in Serie A, predictably. Don't get me started on Serie A. You guys know that I've got a bone to pick with not the top clubs, but kind of the middle and bottom clubs who just spend a lot of money on things that don't make much sense. And it seems like Getafe have decided that they want to be the Spanish equivalent of a Serie A team that just buys random players from the Pro League for no apparent reason. If people have seen those transfers, I think some people probably forget that Zaid Romero was even at Club Brugge, to be honest. I definitely did. I thought he'd gone ages ago. Vasquez as well. Like, I saw Getafe, I think they're one of the lowest scorers in the Liga. And I was like, Vasquez?
I'm not sure. I don't think at the current timing it's already official, that last one at least. But yeah,
it's gonna have potential. It seems quite strongly linked as a rumor.
Yeah, at least that, yes.
But maybe they're listening and it'll put them off. I don't know. Yeah, no, it is really interesting, like you said, Joris. And I think I haven't really had much chance to talk about it, but the Nicky Hyen to Genk one, I just didn't really get it. Like, it just doesn't seem like a good fit. In the sense that I felt like Club Brugge did kind of suit him because of the way he'd got into the job, and it kind of worked. And I feel like on Club Brugge, and we'll segue to them in a section as well, like, if you sack him, because he's popular, like lots of fans did like him, you have to have like quite a, not an immediate, but pretty much an immediate bounce back effect with Leko. And like, obviously Leko was popular before, but is he as good as he was back then? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? You have to have that kind of that bounce back effect. And we'll talk about the Almaty game in a second, but I don't know what you guys think. If it's like, do you think he has to like win the league to keep the job next year, or do you think they'll just give it to him? Because I do have a feeling that if things kind of keep going like this, they might get to the summer and be like, maybe we need to look for someone else.
At the moment, okay, disregarding current result, of course, so like that might be good. If that would have been very disastrous, I'm not even sure he makes the end of the season, to be honest. But I mean, in one of his first games, Verhagen again already comes into the dressing room. That's just, I mean, yeah, there's an issue there. I mean, we can probably also talk about that, even like higher up Verhagen being a bit too much involved. I'm sure he's not the only one, but with him, also like at other clubs, things will happen. I do feel similar to like the Condé also does it too often. It's a different position though, so like he might have a little more right to be there, but it completely loses its effect anyway, regardless of who the person is and how high you are, how often you do it, and then that it doesn't seem like it really helped, and like. Yeah, okay. Against La Louvière, you could still say it was a bit of a fluke, I guess. I'm happy for Leko himself that he did not take the red card as an excuse, because like they were facing the lowest scoring side and they were winning 2-0 already. Regardless of whether you think it was a red card or not. I do feel, I personally feel, but okay, like I don't think this is the main point of me for discussion here, but like I do feel there might have been an initial foul on Ordóñez before he makes the foul, so that not necessarily needed to be a red card. But yeah, you're 10, even with 10 men at home against La Louvière, well, while you're already comfortably winning. Yeah, you should not give away that game. Of course, Verhagen also involved with that goalkeeper call already in the beginning of the season, and the mess that they're in at the moment because of that as well. Like who is keeping with injuries and all probably could have been the same, but yeah, the way how things have gone there and like the pressure that's been put on everyone there. I know it's a top club and you're supposed to be resistant to that, but you should not. I mean, anyway, the president should not decide who is or is not going to be the goalkeeper, regardless of who and what there is. I mean, it just created like this toxic environment in the club, I think, and that's the main thing. Like, even with, like I said, you can talk about, yes, you should be able to handle the pressure regardless, and while be that is may, you should not create unnecessarily toxic environments either. I think Leko indeed needs to get some good results both in the Champions League, so good for him that they won the game against Almaty now, and are still in a fighting chance with a fighting chance for the playoff rounds in the Champions League. And gave themselves a little bit of a breathing space there, but in the league the results also really need to start coming soon, or at least they should make sure that by the time the playoffs come, that the other sides in front of them now are not going to run away further either.
I think Joris's point about, the clubs that had made the shock change is a good one, because none of them have really seen the effect that they were going for there. As he was saying, I think that's important. I think on Nicky to Genk, that's a really interesting one, because I still think that has room to work out longer term. It probably does need a little bit of time. I completely understand why they went for him, actually. I think he's kind of got everything profile-wise that you would look for, and obviously he was available as well, which obviously makes somebody more attractive. I think all the ingredients are for that to work. It's been interesting to kind of watch what's happened since Nicky's gone to Genk, because I think he's still very much getting to know that squad and those players, because he's made a few little tweaks and changes in terms of players that he's given exposure and players that he's brought into the squad. And I think that's somebody who's going, I want to look at this guy, I want to see how he responds to this environment, I want to give him a shot. And so I think he's still very much getting to know these players, which might seem a slightly odd thing to say, you know what I mean, as somebody who was at another top club, he will know many of these players, but that's quite a different thing to kind of working with them day to day as well. And that's what people forget. So I think he's still, still finding his way a little bit. It's not had the bounce that they would have hoped to start some momentum, but I think there are some, and I don't know what you think about this, Joris, there's probably some bigger fundamental, tactical and philosophical things going on inside the club at the moment that that are a hangover from thinkball and even predating thinkball that probably need changed and addressed. And can't necessarily happen quickly. So I think he's probably, just, looking at the shifting sands and maybe considering exactly where he wants to put his own mark and emphasis on things at the moment.
Yeah, the problem is there's no time for that either. So I do feel like this season is lost for Henk anyway, to be honest. And that's even with like the distance to Ghent in 6th place to at least get that playoff spot. Is still only 4 points, so that's still manageable, you would say, but there's too many sides in between and so on as well, that they really need to win, I think, 6 or 7 of their next games, and then there's only 9 games left. So that, given the way things are going, this is not really working out well. I'm a bit disappointed that at the level of play that there's not that big. They were a bit lackluster against Zultuarium now this weekend, and the same patterns as before. So you would have hoped that some touched that something would have changed there already. Whether you then get a result or not is still a different question. But the level of play and the choices were not that different. I am happy to see Bibu getting some minutes in the senior squad, just because it seems like they really need this type of player. I'm not sure if he's already ready to really carry the attack. I'm actually quite convinced he isn't. But maybe give him time to grow a bit. Of course, it might still be from the bench for now as well. But like, I'm happy to see him given some minutes and scoring a first goal as well. I think it's the 4th one in a row or so that scored in his first striker in a row or so that scored in his first game for league game, at least for Genk. Yeah, like O did it, Mirisola did it, but Mirisola, it was also his last goal until now, unfortunately. Erabe did it, and same with him. He also only is still on 1 goal, so I hope that he can continue a bit better than the others on that. But that was the one positive point, I guess. But the game and like the level of play, it's not there yet. I do think he indeed needs some time. I hope he will be given that time. But yeah, I'm very disappointed in the way how the season is going, and I know I'm a bit maybe too pessimistic in saying that maybe the whole season is already lost, more or less, in the league or domestically even. But I'm not feeling that it will turn quickly. But I hope I'm completely wrong, obviously. Some things need to change, and maybe the squad needs some refreshment as well. But first, some players might have to leave for that. And the bigger rebuild, I know we're not in the NBA, but might be, maybe next year it will be a better season as well. Like, he's probably a side that really is living on those NBA terms somehow, in the sense of of having a good season and then having a bad season and then having a rebuild, and of course in football that going a bit. That rebuild possibly going faster than in basketball, that's the way it is somehow, and they really need to find a solution for that. I know there's some financial constraints as well. I know we're always saying Genk is financially doing really well, and they kind of are, but they are, well, still, of course, everyone is hit with the TV money. Being uncertain, so at least like with precautions, but also the change in structure of the club, of course, now moving towards how is it called again? Damn, I forgot the English terms. But making the change anyway from a non-profit on paper, at least, to to a company, an actual company that can make profits, and the taxes that go with that also they're in the middle of those changes, so that also might be hitting harder than we from the outside think that it does. The salaries have risen drastically, unfortunately, without the big upturn in like results as well. So, looking a bit at the financial numbers, it doesn't look as rosy as it looks from the initial glance at looking at the accounts. But nonetheless, yeah. Things should change a bit, and I'm thinking indeed change of personnel and like making some tough choices, some tough cuts maybe might be needed. That's of course not on something for hire, but yeah, he has to deal with what is, well, he has to pick up the pieces, I guess, of what is left and what will be there. I hope he still can do it this season. If not, yeah, hopefully next season.
Yeah, it's funny the idea of writing off a season, because I'm looking at I look at the league, and basically outside of the top three, and let's just say like we're gonna have to consider St. Julian as that legit, unless this just for this to work is like I'm not none of the other teams are convincing in the slightest in any way. Like you look at all of them, and they're deeply flawed in so many different ways, and like club have been Bruges have even been inconsistent, but they're like I trust them a lot more than I trust Standard, Ghent, Anderlecht, like any of these sides that you'd normally think would be in the top six. So I think I'm interested to see that if there's a club, not one of those clubs, that's looking at this and thinking that this is our year to kind of go for European football, because these guys are dropping the ball. Do we push the boat out a little bit more in January, or is it that TV money thing that Joris has just mentioned is kind of just putting them all off, and they're just like, because we haven't really seen anything being spent, and let's not, like Belgian clubs obviously don't spend that big in January anyway. But it is interesting to see kind of the moves that clubs are making and the players that are leaving, and yeah, there's some interesting ones that are happening. And for club as well, just kind of quickly going back to them in the Champions League, obviously, yeah, that win keeps them in it, in with a chance. They've got Marseille in the final game at home, which would be a tough one, because Marseille, I think, if I remember correctly, I was looking at the table, I'm pretty sure they're in the top, I don't know what you have to be, was it top 9 or 8? No, they're not even, well, oh no, they're 16th, I don't know what I'm talking about, but they could make it in there if they beat Liverpool and they beat clubs, so they've got something to play for. Union, obviously, at the time of recording, they travel to Bayern Munich tomorrow. That's probably going to lose. Like even the great Union, the surprise package that they are, I'm hopefully reverse cursing them, but presuming they lose that, they're pretty much out of it.
I liked to come back to another post-match interview. I liked Van der Perre's interview with Union. What was it? The last results of Bayern, was it 8-1 against Wolfsburg and now 1-5 against Leipzig? But now Union is coming, so at least that's the spirit. But I know, of course, inside. I don't know for sure, of course. But I'm presuming indeed everyone is not counting on anything. They're probably the last place you want to go at this stage of the season. While Bayern are indeed
100%.
Not completely certain of this top 8 that they need as well yet. Otherwise, that might also be a different story. But yeah.
You want to face
you can be absolutely certain that Vincent Kompany will be making it very clear to his side that this is a good team that's coming, regardless of how Europe's gone for them so far this season, and perhaps not being what they would have hoped it to be, so they don't take the eye off the ball. That would have to be the message, wouldn't it? That this is, it's still the Belgian champions. They're still a good side, and on their day, they're more than capable of beating anybody. So, you still have to go out there and kind of do it. And I think that'll be the message that he makes. It'll be a pretty clear warning. I think he's a savvy guy, Vince, and I suspect that's what he's going to tell his team.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think this European campaign is it's got massive potential to be an absolute disaster for Belgium, to be honest. And you can take this in whichever way you want, I guess, in terms of this top 6 for this year and who gets into it, because if the so-called bigger clubs don't make it in, you're less convinced. Like we obviously saw Charleroi get in and they didn't even get past the first kind of round of qualification. like it's tough to get into these competitions, and these bigger clubs have the know-how. But at the end of the day, if they don't get there, they don't deserve to be there, and the other clubs deserve to be there. So if St. Truiden make it and finish in the top 3, they deserve to finish in the top 3. At least there's a bit more security in finishing there. It's kind of, we just need Ghent to finish in that kind of final European position place, because they know how to get through to that Conference League, so it's fine.
No worries. I gave up the season domestically, but Genk is obviously going to win the Europa League, so there will be another additional spot. I mean, clearly.
Nicky Hyatt in the was pretty good.
Obviously, that is not, well, hopefully it will happen, but I don't really believe that. But this is my hope, at least, that they will at least get some decent result and get advanced a bit in Europe still. Luckily the fixture list is not too difficult. Utrecht themselves are also struggling. They're facing this week, and they're already kind of out of Europe, and the same goes for Malmö. But I don't trust the current Genk side one bit, unfortunately. They haven't won a game in 2 months. So that's another tongue.
I think it's a really interesting one, this, Ben's point about, not being able to trust a number of sides who really should be firmly in the playoff one kind of position. I think the bottom line here is actually, this is the year, because of the way the season's been going up till now, and I think it's going to continue like that. It's not going to. This is the year where if St. Truiden are going to do something like that, and another side who could, and I'm arguing should be trying to do something like that because of this situation as much of anything else, is Mechelen. Now, I did see Fred van der Beest just the other week saying people are getting a bit carried away. Who do they think we are? Real Madrid or Barcelona? Something like that was his quote. And I thought that was a bit silly because, you've got to have some ambition and look at the bigger picture here. I'm not saying that means you go out and then spend loads of money, but there's a real opportunity looking at how their season's gone and the fact it's been quite positive. If they can maintain some momentum, there's a real chance they get in there. Even if they don't, secure a European spot, it's definitely the year for St. Truiden and Mechelen to really go for this and do something interesting because of the way, some sides are underachieving at the moment.
You're also playing with house money if you get there, if you're Mechelen and St. Truiden, because if you're there alongside, let's say, Anderlecht, Ghent, Club and Union, they're expected to beat you in every single one of those games. They're expected to beat you, and it's like, if Hazi's still in charge, there's pressure on him is going to be enormous to make sure they get into European football. Lecco will be under pressure if they haven't performed, if he's still there. So all those sort of things they'll add up, and it should make it a really interesting 6. And I do hope 2 of the kind of non-traditional sides do at least get in there, because just to mix it up a bit and make it different. Charleroi as well should be looking at it, I think, with like the run they're on at the moment and some of the players they've got. They could easily find themselves in there because, Standard Liège and Ghent are the 2 sides ahead of them. Like, do you trust them? I absolutely do not trust either of those teams to have a consistent run to the end of the season. So it should be quite a chaotic end, to be honest, at both ends of the table, because there's some teams obviously in the bottom 4 that you're like, are they going to?
We have completely ignored that so far, but we can probably touch on it now a bit. But yes, many teams in the bottom 4 have now won their game last weekend as well, right? So. Then they're getting a 6 points out of the possible 6 against Antwerp is, they want to face them all the time, I guess. Cercle obviously also won. Lalivière won. It's really tightening up there. But like, for also still, like, who would have thought Dender are even okay? Unfortunately for them, other results this weekend didn't go their way, but they're kind of still in the fight, or back in the fight. Or that's something we would not have expected, let's say, end of September or beginning of October, for sure. Even later, I think. It's really it is really interesting there. The level of play is not necessarily as good as in other years for the past years, I have to say, across the league, but across the board. But yeah, indeed, the excitement for a lot of things is definitely still there.
Well, we just need to look. I mean, look at the sides down at the bottom, all picking up points, unless your name's Leuven, of course, who had the perfect nightmare weekend. Everyone around them wins. They lose when, if they'd taken their chances, efficiency clacks on everybody. They probably would have got something out of the game. They didn't. They're now, 11 games under Mazu, 4 wins, 5 draws. 2 defeats, only 1 win in their last 7, no signings yet in this window. And of course, over the past week or so, they've brought in a sports psychologist to solve the problems. So I do wonder whether Felix is losing his touch a little bit.
Yeah, talking about managerial changes and shock effects. They had one, but it really was a shock and a very, very short shock, unfortunately. And now they seem shell shocked again. But that's okay. So like that might be a positive for other managers still that didn't get that shock effect. Maybe it's better if it's going better on the long run than just this, because that petered out really quickly, obviously.
Yeah, and I feel like I do rag on this team a bit, and it's not G Leuven, I'm talking about someone else, but keeping Arndt Vesseler, I just looked at their schedule. Not a good time to lose 2 games in a row. Not a good time to lose to Cercle Bruges. You've got Mechelen, Zoltwaardigem, St. Jude, Antwerp, Charleroi, and Union, and then your final game's Leuven. Like, you could easily find yourself slipping into that bottom 4, and then all those managers you've thrown in the bin will turn around and be like, look, it's actually like you're really ambitious owners, but you're not, like, something's not going right there in terms of the squads you're putting together or the people you're picking. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah, I just felt
the good thing again is everything is so tight there. So if they grab 2 wins against certain opponents, they're ahead of them already. So that's how close everything is. And luckily for them, they're now slightly out of that zone with literally 1 point now, obviously, though. But I mean, Zoltwaardigem also really did get their first win in 3 months now. So like, is that a blip, or is it indeed, are they going the Ghent way and picking up form now, and have they reached the turning point? Who knows?
I mean, that makes that Zolta Vesseler game at the end of January is going to be could be quite crucial in that sense of like separating those 2 sides out about which one's going to be looking down and which one's going to be looking up, for sure. I said I'd talk about AFCON, so I feel like I can hijack this to talk about it a little bit. Although I was joking before, one of the few Belgian players, like base players, I actually saw has just left, so that was great. Cheers, Samuel Cotto. I went out for a little bit. As people know, I've written a book on Africa Cup of Nations, so I was like, I just have to go to Morocco to watch this tournament. So I flew out to Rabat for the quarterfinals, Cameroon against Morocco. As people might know as well, I'm also in the midst of writing a book about Moroccan football. So I was like, you've got to go see the national team play at the new stadium. And if you ever get a chance to go to the Stade Moulay, I think it's called, in Rabat, you have to go. It's one of the most incredible stadiums I've ever been to. The noise, everything was just amazing. No towels were stolen during my visit. I did not see any towelgate against Cameroon, which is a shame. But yeah, I was saying to the guys before, kind of some reflections on the tournament a little bit as well. Like, I could see why you had some of the scenes that you had, especially in the press box at the end. Like, I don't know if people saw kind of the scraps that were kind of going on and the arguments that were going on between press factions. And it's very different to kind of, we've been to watch Cercle Bruges, and you get this email before that says, like, you've got to be neutral in the press zone. So that's kind of what I was expecting, but I turned up and everyone's wearing replica shirts. She had Cameroonian replica shirts, Moroccan replica shirts. I was like, this is very different. And people celebrating goals that were scored. And I think Cameroon were denied a penalty. There was no VAR check or anything, and Bremer goes down. I thought it was a definite penalty. And the Cameroonian journalist next to me just stands up and just looks at everyone and just shouts, "It's a fucking disgrace." A la Didier Drogba, Chelsea against Barcelona Champions League, with the hand actions and everything. And then he was saying something in French, which I believe to be, just give them the trophy now. Although his team were well beaten. I think Cotto played all right. They were kind of on the back foot quite a lot and didn't have much chance to do much with the ball. So yeah, the next game I went to see was Nigeria against Algeria, which we saw Rafael Onyedika play. He came on for a little bit, and he looked, to be fair, he got a bit of flack for the semi-final defeat for how he performed, but I thought he looked pretty good against Algeria. He came on, the game was basically won, and he just kind of was able to do what he normally does, which is break up play, move the ball along, make driving runs forward. Like, he's just, I do think he's probably going to get picked up in the summer, to be honest, by someone, because the people around me seem quite impressed with him as well. But that stadium in Marrakesh is not one I'd ever recommend visiting. That place is an absolute nightmare. to get to. If you ever get the chance to go, it takes so long to get to. You have to get, if you're going to get, you have to get like a motorbike taxi, because there's only one road in and one road out, and if there's a couple of thousand people going, it just gets absolutely clogged up. So I think it's one that's going to be used for the World Cup, guys. So I'll be interested to see kind of how that goes, because they're going to have to make massive changes. A couple of, I guess, with Belgium obviously playing Egypt as well, we could probably reflect a little bit on that. I think after this tournament, if I'm a Belgian fan, I'm very confident about facing that Egyptian side, because if Hossam Hassan's in charge, he's just a bit clueless, to be honest. He can't get him playing. He can't get him going forward. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just a big name that's there, and I know that's what kind of Egyptian fans are also reflecting on as well, is that he's just there for that reason. I haven't looked at how it could all line up, but obviously Senegal would be a team that if I was Belgium, I'd definitely want to avoid if possible. They are good. They're very, very good. They play football the right way, kind of all that. I'm not really going to touch on what happened in the final too much, because that was just probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Has that ever happened? Joris, you've probably watched more Belgian football than Scotland. Has any team ever walked off the pitch over a decision that you can remember?
It's such a typical thing in the lower leagues to say that, right? If you play but then you still don't really do it, I guess. Usually it's said like, let's just go, but it doesn't happen. But no, I don't have any recollection, at least not active. And no. We might have to ask listeners if they recall anything in Belgium or anywhere else, even. It's it is it potentially opens a box of Pandora, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, Ben went to AFCON and never even brought me and Joris back so much as a fez. Never mind a tagine. Didn't even get a fez. But the experience, I mean, absolutely amazing. And people who listen to us regularly will know about the enduring links between African and Belgian football. So, if you're thinking why this wild segue, aside from, Ben's previous book, there's lots of reasons for this. And actually, of course, there was quite a lot of Pro League interest at the competition, as there always is, maybe a little bit less this time than the last couple of tournaments. Coming into it, I was kind of keeping an eye on the numbers, seeing them slowly creep up, but not getting up to what you kind of hoped that they would. But there's always Pro League interest at the tournament. Off the pitch as well, obviously, there's quite a lot of coaches who had connections directly and indirectly as well. I mean, me and Joris had a chat. Was it last week or the week before, Joris, about Tom Sanfit? That was recently anyway. Yeah, 2 weeks ago now. Yeah, remarkable story. Ben might write a book about Tom Sanfit's career, because he's got one of those CVs that maybe needs to be explained in an entire book. We'll see if that's on the working list. But yeah, I mean, what an amazing experience, going from what obviously is a world class stadium by the sounds of it, and certainly looks at it from what I saw, to a stadium that leaves a lot to be desired. An amazing tournament, probably one that's characterised. I mean, do you feel it's kind of changed for the better or the worse, Ben? Because I think a lot of people who are out there were saying that it's becoming less predictable in the way that a lot of European tournaments are. And has it lost a bit of its wild magic?
It had until that final. I think, I'd done some stuff being like, it's always unpredictable, and it usually has been unpredictable. But this one was the most predictable I've seen for a very long time, since like the really old, like the older tournaments where you didn't have as many teams, and it was just kind of like you'd have like a random team. I remember there's one with like Mauritius in, and they just got battered the whole time. So it's like stuff like that happens. But yeah, this one was really, really different, and I think as well, like the Nigeria-Algeria game, I can't remember seeing that much of a disparity between two sides that I think of being at the pinnacle of kind of the top of African football, where like Nigeria just completely dominated them. They were like, Algeria were terrible, to be honest. We saw an old friend in Rafiq Bergali, who he actually had a reasonable game. Zorgan didn't even come on. I was like, this is why you're losing, lads. Like, get him on the pitch. This is watching Morocco play. Obviously, Bilal El Khanous. It's the first time I've actually seen him in person. Obviously, watched a lot of him when he played for Genk, but seeing him in person, and it's an interesting thing, because like Morocco taking players from European football a lot more than any. I've never really seen an African side do that and be able to do that and like convince players to do that. So it's interesting, but I think the perception, the thing. So this is kind of like one of my big takeaways from it as well, is the perception of Morocco has completely shifted on that final, because 2002 World Cup, they were like the darlings of kind of non-African kind of football fans and stuff like that. Everyone saw them at 2002 World Cup, 2022 World Cup, sorry, not 2002. Blimey, that's a long time ago. At 2022 World Cup, they obviously set that record. They get to semi-final, first African side to do that. Everyone's like, this is a nation that like people enjoy. They're like, look at all these players, all this. Like, it's really positive. This tournament, they've put incredible stadiums together, incredible infrastructure. It's really, really well organized. In that sense, like from the bits I went to, apart from one thing, that stadium in Rabat and Marrakesh didn't have any bloody food for the press, and I was absolutely starving the whole way home. I had to go to McDonald's on the way back, and I make a thing, I don't want to go to McDonald's like when I'm in a different country. I'm just like, such a waste, especially in Morocco. Scott's already mentioned tagine, and like the food out was incredible, but it was the only place open after the game, and everyone was on the street celebrating. So I was like, this is the only place I can go.
In the one street, right?
Yeah,
that's not ideal either.
It's funny actually, because we should explain to people who've maybe never had the press experience at a game anywhere like we do in different capacities. Getting some food laid on, whatever it is, even if it's just a packet of crisps for the media, is a great thing, because you're out all day. You're sometimes in the cold and wet. Most press boxes aren't that comfortable. Some are, but it's few and far between. Getting some food, whether it's a pie or a packet of crisps or any sustenance at all laid on by clubs, is actually a really important thing. That's why it's such a major bugbear for Ben. And when he said that, I rolled my eyes. I thought, you have this amazing world class stadium, all of these facilities, amazing food all around you. And there's nothing there. So that's why, I think it's quite important for the media to be looked after, not just because they work long hours and, hang around in the cold and wet to, hopefully get a player to agree to talk to them and bring you that interview and those kind of quotes and that kind of coverage. So it's a big thing for us media types.
Yeah, and I saw people with like little biscuits, and I was like, where have you got those from? But the lady next to me then whipped out a Kinder Bueno, and I was like, she knows what she's doing. Like, she's been here before. But it was a real privilege. But yeah, like I said, I think Morocco's the stand, like the kind of perception of Morocco as a team and as a country has actually been really damaged by the incidents we saw in the final minute, especially this thing around the towel and the ball boys. Like, it's so bizarre. I've never seen anything like it. And annoyingly, it's already being cast as an African problem. And it's like, this isn't an African problem. This is a very much a particular problem for that country and what happened in that stadium and why was that happening. Like, there needs to be some answers on that, to be honest. I think Senegal could have conducted themselves better. And I think they I don't want to get too much into it, because I know our podcast isn't about this, but I think if you look at the incidents in an isolated way, the two main ones from that final, I don't think you can really react like they did to it if you don't have all the kind of rhetoric that's been kind of building up over the tournament that Morocco are being favoured by the referees, because he blows the whistle when he just sees Hakimi fall over. How many times in the Pro League do we see a referee blow at a corner when someone just falls over, when there's nothing has happened? It's like, we know nothing has happened, but the referee's just like, corner of his eye, sees someone falls over, blows the whistle. Like, it happens all the time. The penalty as well, he didn't give it. VAR intervened. You show the Belgian referees someone with their arm around the neck of a player and pulling him over, he's going to give a penalty. I thought it was soft, but it's a penalty, like, at the end of the day. And he definitely didn't miss it on purpose. I'm going to take that one as far as I go, because you don't miss that. Like, that player, that kind of character doesn't miss that penalty on purpose. That's not what Brahim Diaz is, in my opinion. Like, he's flamboyant and arrogant, and the penalty was arrogant, and he kind of got punished for the arrogance. At the end of the day, it was just a terrible penalty. But yeah, it's interesting. I'd recommend, if anyone gets a chance to go to an AFCON, definitely go. It'll be very different, I think, because the countries are so different. Like, the next one's going to be in East Africa and stuff, so it'll be really, really interesting. But yeah, it was a really unique experience. It was a privilege, to be honest. I think it was a real privilege to be able to go, especially to the Morocco game. Like, speaking to Moroccans, they were like, we can't even get tickets. I think one guy was a bit like, not angry, but kind of a bit put out that I'd gone. And I was like, I was with press. Like, I didn't buy a ticket. I didn't steal a ticket from like someone to go to the game or anything like that. Although an Algerian guy, one of the photographers, was telling me people trying to buy his press access off him for like a lot of money before the Algeria-Nigeria game. And he was just like, what is going on? Like, this is bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. And that wasn't even full, the stadium. So yeah, it was interesting. Definitely interesting. I'm looking forward to going back a couple more times in the future. But enough about AFCON. That one is now in the books, as they say. Before we go, we should probably talk about the CPL, because there has been a big transfer, a big name transfer to a club that, has an interesting perception, especially amongst this podcast, which could be, make it an interesting match. Not a match made in heaven, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I mean, we won't recap the results actually, because this story's kind of almost too interesting to kind of get lost in the results now. But yeah, we now know that Ryan Angolan, who needs no introduction, has left Lokeren and is now a Patro Eisden player, which, seems like a match made in heaven in so many ways, rightly and wrongly. I was having a chat to a good friend of the BFP today, who is a very well-connected individual, who was telling me a little bit more about some of the numbers around this deal, which I think we'll share here without sharing who gave me these numbers. But yeah, so Raya's on 15,000 a month at Patro, which is obviously more than he was on at Lokeren, not surprisingly. But when you think about the financial context in Belgian football generally at the moment, but particularly in the Challenger Pro League, that's mad money. That's absolutely mad money that's totally unjustifiable for the most part. And there's also money that Patro shouldn't and don't really have to be spending on players. So the message they sent out was, we didn't have to dig too deep into our pockets, is patently nonsense. It's a 200,000 200,000 a year deal for Angolan, £75,000 transfer fee. This is just a mad deal, 18 months for somebody who, is already in the twilight of his career, albeit able to perform at this level to a certain extent and be reasonably impactful. But it's not like Patro have a chance of going for automatic promotion. That's gone as well. And it's just, I think it's perhaps typical of a club who are pretty rogue both on and off the pitch. But a wild one has reached a conclusion.
In all fairness, he played really well, and they beat one of those ties that might end up in those top two. So maybe there's still a last-ditch challenge in coming there, or if not that way, through the through the playoffs system, which is a long way, obviously. For that they are definitely in contention at least. But that's not an entirely different discussion. But basket case club is what Scott likes to call them, and I do think they definitely are showing that once again. And let's see what this latest episode in this drama series brings them in the longer run. But the first episode was actually a good one somehow.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the table, it does feel like it's like a really big, not big, but like a move that's like we fancy ourselves to get back to that playoff final again, and we fancy ourselves to be able to win that playoff final. Beerscott just signed a big name, literally big name, South African forward as well. That could be quite an interesting one to watch. RC Liège obviously have lost their striker, so are they going to fall out of it? Lommel actually having they're the second most informed side, or joint informed side with Beveren at the moment. They could probably be looking at it as well and thinking this is our year, our chance to do it. And it's interesting. I think we can probably talk about Lommel in a future episode about how they've slightly changed their the way they've operated, and that's actually working for them because they've actually focused on the right way to get promoted, if you can say that, like the more consistent and the more long-term vision way, rather than kind of just letting the City group dump a load of players there every year and hope that it works, sort of thing. Urban as well on the outside looking Patro are kind of, they're on the edge of it there. Is Nainggolan going to be enough to kind of move them in? and push them in and kind of solidify their position in there. Could do. I mean, he helped Lokeren get there last season, but I'm kind of with you guys. It'll be good until it's not good. Do you know what I mean? Like it'll be all fine and dandy until something will go on that will just start to kind of change things. They just need to kind of chuck in like a Lam Kalzi, a Lapoussin, just kind of bring everyone in that you can think of that could kind of rough and tumble the boat, but has massive quality as well. And just see what happens. Like just have some fun with it. That could be quite entertaining. But yeah, we'll be keeping our eye on it, that's for sure.
Lamkel Z, by the way, is free and available, and a Belgian club haven't picked up the phone yet. So either they're mad, which some of them are. We know this. We know these clubs well, guys, don't we, listeners? Some of them are mad. But maybe they're beginning to learn that might not be such a good idea anymore.
Someone will get them back. It's routine. Like this time of year, someone's desperate. He's waiting. He picks up a payday. He's gone within the next couple of months. It's just the way the world works, and the world has to work until he retires. To be honest, I think that probably is it for this week. The Trident has returned. Hopefully, it was a successful return. Hopefully, there's not going to be petitions for me to stay away for an extended period of time, end my indefinite contract like Torsten Fink had with Genk anytime soon. But yeah, guys, it's been great to be back. And it's been great to catch up with you guys in the podcast and outside the podcast as well.
Yeah, what a delight to be a Trident. It's the longest we have been separated, so to be reunited after such a long time is, it feels a bit like there used to be a very famous TV show in the UK where me and Ben are based with a very famous personality. Joris won't understand this bit at all, so we'll explain it very, very quickly. There used to be a very famous TV presenter in the UK called Cilla Black, who's now dead. And she used to have this TV show called Surprise, Surprise, where she would reunite long-lost family members and these obscure family connections. And this feels a bit like this, and it's just amazing.
All right, yeah, let's take that. That was hopefully a good one indeed for everyone to have us all back, and long may it continue.
Absolutely, and Cilla Black just reminds me. She used to come to Reading games a lot because she was really friendly with Sir John Madejski. So you're triggering so many memories in my head. Yeah, they were really good friends. So she was always around at Reading games. It was quite funny. One of our more famous. I don't know if she's actually a fan of us or if she just really liked John Madejski. But we'll claim her. We'll claim her as one of our famous fans. That's for sure. And I hope all the Belgians are now looking her up. You've probably seen her doing that surprise, kind of like it's become more of a meme and like a kind of viral video. So yeah, I think you'll know who she is without knowing who she is, sort of thing. But yeah, what a legend. Anyway, that does it for the Cilla Black segment of this episode. Thanks as always to everyone for listening. If you like it, please do leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. If you've already done that and you want to help a little bit more, you can donate to us at buymeacoffee.com. So yeah, the links to that will be in the show notes and on our socials as well. But yeah, as always, we will be back again very soon for another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. So I hope everyone has a great week, enjoys the action, and we'll see you very soon.